So at this point we still don't know when the next Smash Bros. Game is happening, just that it has to at some point, right? Ultimate sold like absolute crazy, so it's only a matter of time until the Switch 2 gets something Smash related, even if that something is a Switch 2 edition of Ultimate first. But because Ultimate pushed the Smash formula we know to its absolute limits, at least roster-wise, the next game's gonna need to find some way to stand out, some way to feel new. While there are a lot of ways to do that, let's talk about one of them. What if Smash 6 shuffled the deck moveset-wise? A lot of veteran fighters have started showing their age, and while some need full remakes badly, others could benefit from a simple touch-up. So how about a little thought experiment? Let's take 16 different fighters and swap out one of their specials with a new one, a fresh addition to their movesets that help them feel fresh to play as. Interested? Then let's get started! First up, neutral specials, often a very straightforward move or a cornerstone of the character's design. Let's see what a few new ones could look like. And here's someone who'd benefit from an upgrade. Link's been here since Smash's beginning, and his neutral special is almost always his least useful one. What he needs is something to make whipping out his bow more worth using sometimes. So, how about something directly inspired by this Link's second quest? Now, pressing B has Link prep an arrow, but he'll only fire it again once you press it a second time. If you wait and charge, instead of just making the arrow hit harder and fly further, Link uses his hand powers from Tears of the Kingdom to fuse one of multiple materials from his inventory to the arrowhead, rotating between them as you wait. Want an amber shard to make your arrow extra strong? A puff shroom to create a smoke screen where it lands? Or a Keese eyeball for homing in on nearby opponents? Or if Link's already holding a small item, he can fuse that to the arrow, with varying damage, knockback, and visuals depending on exactly what the item is. Would need very careful balancing. Let's jump over to a different fantasy swordsman. Most of Ike's moveset is inspired by his canon fighting style with multiple moves directly from his games, with one exception. Eruption's useful for hitting recoveries, but it does stick out like a sore thumb, especially in Brawl when it was just regular fire. What if Smash 6 replaced it with something closer to the source material? Now, Ike swings his sword Ragnell in an arc, and the legendary weapon casts off energy that, after a set distance, forms into a wave of blue flames that travel further. While the projectile takes a while to get going, it has respectable power, enough to put opponents high into the air and even KO at very high percents. But you know how it needs some distance to fully form? That's to mimic how this move is specifically for attacking at range in Ike's games. It's not for walling opponents out, it's for harassing them until they come closer and fight you from one space away instead of two, so to speak. Princess Peach has been much more than a damsel in distress lately, even getting her own game last year. Much of her Smash moveset is held up, with a glaring exception in her neutral special. Is there something more active she could do besides ducking and covering while a toad protects her? Well, Showtime did give her something new she can do when not in costume. Press B, and Peach spins a magic ribbon around her, striking anyone on either side. She can also control the ribbon. Press forward or up after starting the move to direct it into a cone shape ahead or above her for a more focused attack in those directions. But what if I told you this isn't just for offense? If Peach touches a teammate with this move, she'll deal a special hit that inflicts no damage and mild knockback that brings them toward her, even with the team attack option off, letting her pull them out of harm's way or refresh their recovery. A special that can harm enemies and support allies feels very in character. Elsewhere in the Marioverse, Ultimate's least expected newcomer is not all there moveset-wise. While it is loaded with references to different piranha plant subspecies in the Mario games, and it being so focused on traps and anti-airs makes sense, everything here is a little too one-dimensional for its own good. Swapping out the Patooey ball is a big deal, but what if its replacement was so useful for Plant that it was worth the loss? Piranha plants aren't just known for coming out of pipes and biting people, several can also spit fireballs. Pressing B now would have Plant cough up a flaming orb, and from there, pressing any of 16 directions would spit the fireball in that direction in a straight line. It might be weaker than the Patooey, but it's useful in more situations where foes aren't either cornered or directly above you. Still, it'd work best when you have some room to breathe and set it up. Just like in the Mario games, this fire trap isn't effective against someone standing right next to the plant spitting it. Alright, what's next? Side specials often involve some kind of movement, which we'll see from these 4 new ones. First, look no further than Mr. Nintendo himself. Mario's moveset has barely changed at all, mostly because it's done its job of being simple and beginner-friendly. But while his cape is useful, the actual power-up hasn't been in any mainline platformers in almost 35 years. What if Smash 6 tapped into a popular fan idea involving a relatively more recent game? Mario's new side special has him toss his hat, which is actually Cappy, straight forward, dealing a quick hit to anyone in the way. Upon reaching its max distance, one of two ranges depending on if you use the tilt or smash input, the hat spins in place for several seconds. If the player who threw the hat touches it while it's out, they bounce off it for a quick jump. If it's spinning in midair, this functions like a bonus third jump. The hat also has defensive utility. It can take about 8% of damage before returning to Mario's head, so it can block a projectile while you approach behind it, which means that it's still helpful against those types of moves, just like the cape. Next, how about someone whose moveset hasn't aged well? Not sure how they fumbled a character as popular as Lucario so badly that hardly anyone plays him in Ultimate. This moveset could use a more thorough rework, but a new side special is one step in the right direction, especially one the line has become so associated with. Bone Rush shapes Lucario's aura into a solid, bone-like quarterstaff and rushes forward for an initial attack. On its own, it'll perform a second hit afterward that knocks opponents away, but if you press other inputs after the first, you'll add extra attacks in the middle, optionally extending the move if you're confident you can land every hit. If you're thinking, hey, this sounds like a Rekka-type move from traditional fighting games, then yeah, a style of special that simultaneously fits a martial artist character like a glove and draws from a move Lucario's become more known for since Brawl. Speaking of iffy movesets, 3 games in and Sonic still doesn't feel right. A lot of his kit still feels weirdly generic, and his design encourages running away most of the time and slowing down the match in very un-Sonic-like fashion. Could a new special help fix all of that? How about one that makes it easier to get in and encourages it? Press forward and B, and Sonic boosts forward with incredible speed, crossing the stage in record time. Lets the blue blur approach with ease, escape pressure in a flash, and recover horizontally sometimes. Sounds overpowered, right? Well, the right limits could keep it in check. For one, using it would draw from a meter just like in his recent games, and he'd only gain meter from damaging opponents. If he goes too long without doing so, the meter starts to go down, making his players fight more aggressively to maintain it. And for 2, it'd function like the boost in Sonic Frontiers, which can't damage anything on its own. Instead of barging through enemy attacks, he'd have to use it wisely and avoid getting hit while moving around. Hey, someone else who just showed up in Ultimate. Banjo and Kazooie's DLC reveal saw uproarious cheers from their longtime fans that quieted down after they came out. The Baron Birds moveset pulls heavily from their games, but they're set up in a way that hasn't appealed to many people. Let's see one change that could, potentially, help with that. Based directly on one of their moves, instead of being loosely inspired, the duo leap back a little as Kazooie preps her wings. Then she launches the two of them into a horizontal dive bomb that plows through opponents without requiring a limited resource to do so. The beak bomb goes a long way and hits hard, but it's just as difficult to aim as in their games. Its exact flight path is randomly selected from a small range of angles every time you see it, and you can only barely adjust it mid-flight. On the bright side, not requiring gold feathers means that item's freed up to be used elsewhere in the moveset. If they got a fuller overhaul, that is. Wonder what that could look like. Up specials are usually for recovery first and foremost, with other utility built around that. Makes it harder to come up with new ones, but I have a few ideas. Let's look at Samus first, a long runner whose moveset hasn't aged the best. Screw attacks worked okay as her up special, but now we can upgrade her with everything she's picked up since the 1990s, or in this case, something she had back then that more people know about now. This high-speed dash available through the speed booster was a secret originally, but it's such common knowledge now that Metroid Dread straight up shows you how to do it right when you get the thing. On use, Samus stops and builds up energy, no running start necessary, then rockets in any cardinal or diagonal direction you press, dealing a powerful hit to anyone in the way. While it goes a lot further than her current up special, it has its weak points. Very long startup means Samus can get hit out of it before going anywhere, and while it's fast, moving in a predictable straight line means a well-timed edgeguard can intercept her. You know what else new specials could do? Help Echo Fighters stand out better. Dark Samus has a lot of unique stuff that Ultimate didn't tap into, since the whole point with Echoes is them being easy to make. If Smash 6 can offer more time to the Echoes we already have, you could see her diverge more from the real Samus, including an up special that works differently from the old Screw Attack and the new Shine Spark. Inspired by the incorporeal form she takes in parts of Prime 3, Dark Samus shifts into a cloud of gaseous phazon. From there, you can freely fly around, completely untouchable by enemy attacks, like a teleport without the directional limits of one. However, that comes at a cost. You have to change back eventually, and the longer you're intangible, the longer you're left open after you become corporeal again. Especially dangerous since you can't grab ledges until you're solid again and can actually interact with them. Here's another Smash 64 veteran who could use some help. Final Cutter's an alright idea on paper, but it's been so slow and unwieldy for several games that it drags Kirby's design down. A rework could give the Puffball a new special that still draws from his extensive repertoire. In other words, we're using a different ability. Now, Kirby spontaneously dons a majestic cape and leaps upward while emitting a heroic aura that damages nearby enemies. He can even press left or right to steer his flight for more flexible movement than he currently has. And if you press A or B at the apex of the jump, Kirby performs the rocket dive maneuver to plunge back down, dealing a second hit to anyone who got caught by the jump while still having the ability to steer left or right. And since Kirby gains a cape for this move, it doesn't clash with the ability hats he gets from other fighters. Well, most of them would need alternate cape designs for Mr. Game & Watch, Steve, or Banjo. We covered one Link already, so how about another? We don't know how many of them will return in Smash 6, but if Toon Link comes back, it'd help if he was able to be more distinct. Giving the Hero of Winds a special unique to him would go a long way. Drawing from an item exclusive to Wind Waker, Toon Link whips out a giant leaf from the Deku Tree and rides a sudden updraft into the sky, which he probably summoned. He can direct the wind. It deals a decent hit as he's rising, but the important part is what happens at the top. Toon Link keeps the Deku Leaf open, able to steer left and right while falling very slowly until he puts it away. And unlike the other Link sub-specials, this move would not put Toon Link into free fall afterward, letting him recover high if he wants to, and mix up how he moves in the air just like a Master of the Winds would want to. Down specials, the wild cards, often the most unique move in a fighter's arsenal. There's some fun stuff we can give some of the veterans here. First up is the man of the hour. DK's got a brand spanking new adventure with a new design and a ton of new moves. People are already clamoring for him to get a rework in Smash 6, and a new down special would be the first step toward that. Press down and B while standing on a stage surface, and DK grabs onto the floor and starts pulling. After mashing the button enough, he yanks an entire chunk of material out of it, which doesn't actually remove part of the stage for obvious balance reasons. Carrying this piece of terrain around would open up a bunch of new options for the big guy, almost like a type of stance. He could swing the chunk around as a blunt weapon, throw it for a big single-use projectile, leap off it for extra recovery, or even turf surf to careen into opponents while letting the chunk take any oncoming hit. Different stages would even give DK different materials. Lighter stuff like wood would let him attack faster, but wouldn't hit as hard. Heavier materials like solid rock would be the opposite. We're hitting all the Links today. Compared to the other two, young Link has the lightest weight and shortest range of the fastest attacks, and mashiest projectiles. His bombs are pretty unremarkable though, rarely worth using when he can pelt people with fire arrows and well-angled boomerangs. If he sticks around next game, how about giving him a new special more associated with the Hero of Time? Now we can pull out the bomb chews that feature in the games he's from. Toss or drop the mouse-shaped explosive, and once it hits the ground, it activates. Acting on its own, the bomb chew glides along the ground, off platforms, and up and around walls until it reaches something it can blow up or its fuse runs out. That said, you can't just throw this one out without thinking. If an opponent catches the bomb chew before it turns on, or it gets knocked out of your hand and falls to the ground inactive, it can get turned right back against you. Speaking of characters with uncertain futures, if Smash 6 trims the roster, we'll probably see a few cuts from Fire Emblem. Corrin's on shaky ground due to being from a divisive entry that came out in the same era as a game that multiple fighters from their series are from. But if Corrin did return, there's a way we could replace the cliché Fire Emblem counterattack special. Instead, they draw from their ability to manipulate certain terrain in Fire Emblem Fates. On use, Corrin crouches and places one hand on the ground, channeling their draconic powers. If they don't get hit for about 2.5 seconds, they activate an unseen dragon vein, summoning a pool of standing water that spills out to the left and right, covering a little over a platform length total. As long as the water is present, any foes who stand in it suffer debuffs to their movement speed and jump height. This unique form of stage control would help Corrin stand out better, though it'd go away after a little while, or after you lose a stock, and there'd be a cooldown before you can activate it again. One more recent newcomer for the road. Ridley's handled pretty well in Ultimate. Guess all the games spent figuring out how the hell he could actually work in Smash paid off. Yet there's one move that still feels like it's missing. It means sacrificing that wicked-looking skewer move, but let's incorporate something from several of his boss fights. Ridley pauses in the air, or leaps upward if on the ground, scrunches up, points his tail below him, and plunges straight down. If he hits the stage or another fighter, even if they're shielding, he deals a powerful hit with heavy shield damage while bouncing off them. If you don't press any jump, attack, or dodge buttons, he keeps going for up to 2 more bounces. And since you can aim left or right for the second or third parts, you can surprise anyone who thought they could flee from your initial onslaught by rolling or dashing away. They thought they had a chance to escape? Ha! They're already as good as dead. Whew, is that it already? There we are, 16 new specials for 16 characters. Some help refresh their movesets with new stuff from their source material. Others help them feel more unique compared to characters they're currently very similar to. And a few are moves that just felt like they were missing before now. So, did this sampler platter of ideas spark your inspiration? Got any ideas of your own for how the roster's veterans could get a refresh next game? There are a lot of ways that Smash 6, whenever it happens, could shake up the series formula for the better. Maybe I ought to look into more ways it could do that, if you're interested in such a thing. Hey, thanks to the following people for making this video possible, especially my patrons for the continued support. And if you are looking for fuller remakes of veteran fighters, I've done a lot of those already. Check them out if you're so inclined. So, until next time, I need to play more of DK Bonanza.